You've been told to have faith. But no one ever explained what that truly means. Not really. Not in the way that holds weight, that moves energy, that shapes the invisible into the visible. Faith has been reduced to a mood, a whisper, a candle in the wind. But what if faith is not the flicker, but the current itself? What if it's not something you wait for, but something you become? Pause, wherever you are. Right now, as you listen, notice what time it is, what city you're in. Comment it if you feel called. You're part of something deeper than routine. You're part of a frequency tuning itself. Now breathe into this idea. Faith is substance. That's not metaphor. That's structure. That's instruction. To call something a substance is to say it exists, that it has density, that it shifts the room before anyone speaks, that it changes your very biology before any evidence appears. Neville Goddard said it plainly. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. But we've turned faith into passive hoping, soft wishing, nice-sounding affirmations whispered in rooms filled with fear. We've confused faith with waiting, but true faith doesn't wait. It transmits. It is not a fragile hope wrapped in good intentions. It is a frequency, precise, steady, undeniable. It is the knowing that you don't wait for the world to change before you believe. You believe so deeply, so steadily, that the world bends. Dr. Joe Dispenza taught that belief changes the chemistry of your brain, that it shifts your heart rhythm, your electromagnetic field, your nervous system. This is not theory, it's biology. You're not just hoping anymore. You are becoming the shape of the answer. Faith is not louder than fear. It's steadier. It doesn't fight. It doesn't explain. It simply stands. It walks into rooms differently. It speaks with silence. And the world, the quantum field, the unseen mechanisms of reality, they all respond not to your struggle, but to your tone. This book is not here to help you beg better. It's here to remind you how to become better tuned. Not louder, just more clear. Not more emotional, just more anchored. Imagine a tuning fork. When struck, it doesn't shout. It resonates. It calls other frequencies into harmony. Faith is that vibration. Not the begging for the mountain to move, but the tone that makes it inevitable. You've been told to ask. But what if you stopped asking and started embodying? What if instead of waiting for the miracle, you became the frequency that miracles are magnetized to? You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. The invisible is more powerful than you think. It doesn't need evidence to exist. It only needs coherence. And your job is to become coherent with the answer you say you seek. Faith, then, is not just belief. It is energetic certainty. It is what your nervous system holds long before your calendar reflects it. It is what your breath communicates even when your lips are silent. If your body is still rehearsing tension, still whispering, "not yet," then you're not broadcasting the answer. You're broadcasting the absence. So we begin here, not with magic, not with emotion, but with frequency. You don't have to feel ecstatic. You only have to feel anchored. What would it feel like to know, not hope, but know that your prayer has already been received? Because that's what this is. It's not begging. It's not chasing. It's walking into the temple of the unseen with a steady gait. It's lighting a candle not to plead for light, but to affirm what you already carry. And once you live there long enough, your cells respond. Your words slow. Your breath deepens. You stop performing. You start holding. This section is the foundation. It is the threshold. Once crossed, you don't return to waiting. You begin transmitting. This is where your faith stops being conceptual and becomes a command. And once you see faith as a substance, every part of your life must align to carry it. Let's walk further into this. If faith is frequency, then where is it felt first? If faith is frequency, then it begins where frequency lives, in the body. Before any word is spoken, before any action is taken, before a single result arrives, something deeper stirs. A quiet signal pulses through your breath, your heartbeat, your posture. It's the resonance of a truth that hasn't materialized yet, but already exists within. This is where real faith lives, not in the intellect, not in a theory, but in the physical body. The body becomes the carrier wave. You've been taught to believe with your mind, but minds wander, minds doubt, minds replay memories and project fears, minds reach for logic, but your body, your chest rising and falling, your muscles softening or bracing, your body tells the truth of what you really believe. The great misunderstanding is this: people wait to feel secure after the breakthrough arrives. But faith reverses that order. Faith says, feel secure before it arrives. Be the version of you who already knows. Breathe as if the answer is already present. Walk like someone who's not checking the clock. Speak like someone who's not asking, but affirming. Dr. Caroline Leaf reminds us that thoughts are not just intangible things. They are physical. They occupy neural space. They affect every cell in your body. When you feel certainty, even without external proof, your entire system reorganizes to reflect that inner state. Imagine this. You close your eyes. You see your desire fulfilled. But more than seeing, you feel it. You feel the softening in your chest, the release in your shoulders, the gentle expansion in your spine. That's not imagination. That's creation. That's neurological rehearsal. You're not just daydreaming. You're rewiring. You're signaling to your subconscious that this isn't just a possibility. It's a present tense truth. And the subconscious listens not to your words, but to your emotion. That's how you train the field to reflect your inner world. There is no shortcut around this. Visualization without emotion is static. It flickers, but doesn't echo. It doesn't strike the tuning fork. But once emotion enters, once you begin to embody the outcome, your body becomes the resonator, and the world begins to match the tone. So when you say, I am healed, but your body is tense and waiting, you're not broadcasting healing. You're signaling doubt. But when you say, I am whole, and you feel your breath deepen, your gaze soften, your shoulders rest, that's faith in motion. That's coherence. Most people say their affirmation while holding their breath. They repeat the right words, but carry a nervous system that's still bracing for disappointment. That dissonance is the reason nothing shifts. Your job is not to fix everything in your outer world. Your job is to feel into the new world first. Let your biology begin to believe it before your eyes do. This is the reversal that changes everything. And it doesn't take grandeur. You don't need to fake bliss. You don't need to force ecstasy. You only need to reach for subtle certainty. The gentle yes in your belly. The small shift in tone. The quiet permission to believe without proof. That's the sacred space where faith is born. Not in a cathedral, but in the breath between your thoughts. So ask yourself, what does it feel like to be in alignment with what I've asked for? Not how it looks, not what I'll do when it comes, but what it feels like right now. Start there. Not with changing the world, but with changing state. Neville Goddard always taught, your only job is to change your state. The world will follow. The world must follow. You are not chasing a future. You are inviting it. And that invitation isn't written in words. It's written in resonance. When your nervous system feels safe with your desire, when your breath no longer clutches, when your eyes soften into trust, that's when you stop needing signs. That's when the signal becomes steady enough for the mirror to respond. This is the real secret. Faith doesn't wait to see. Faith becomes the evidence before the evidence arrives. Faith lives in the way you sit, the way you answer the phone, the way you prepare your tea in the morning. It's all a prayer. And the field listens to the tone of that prayer, not the volume. If you're wondering where to begin here. Not with doing more, not with trying harder, but with noticing. What does faith feel like in me? Because once your body believes, your world has no choice but to reflect it. The invisible becomes tangible through you. So next, we go deeper. If your body is the first place faith must live, then let's ask, what is it broadcasting right now? Your body is not just the vessel of belief, it is the voice of it. Before any words are spoken aloud, your body has already said everything. The way your shoulders settle or tense, the curve of your spine, the speed of your breath, even how you receive a compliment. All of it broadcasts your frequency long before you speak a single affirmation. You can say, "I am abundant," 100 times. But if your gut is clenched, your jaw tight, your chest shallow, then the message being sent into the field is fear, not abundance. Because the subconscious mind does not obey your words, it obeys your state. This is not metaphysics, it's neurobiology. Dr. Bruce Lipton, one of the pioneers in cellular biology, made it clear. Your beliefs become your biology. The genetic code is not a life sentence. It is a responsive canvas. And what paints that canvas is not what you think is true. It's what your nervous system has normalized. You're not stuck because your DNA is fixed. You're stuck because your body has learned to expect disappointment. It has memorized rejection. It has trained itself to flinch at the threshold of joy. Most expectations aren't conscious. They're physical. They live in the tightness in your chest when the phone rings, in the breath you hold every time you try something new, in the low hum of "what if it doesn't work?" running quietly beneath your smile. This is why faith has to descend from the mind into the muscles, from your thoughts into your bloodstream. You cannot carry new possibilities in a body still wired for defense. You cannot welcome love while your posture prepares for heartbreak. You cannot carry wealth while your spine braces for lack. So what does it mean to bring the body into belief? It means you train your biology to feel safe with the very thing you say you want. It means teaching your system how to hold abundance without guilt, how to breathe through worthiness, how to soften into certainty. You begin not by pretending, but by practicing. Start here. The next time you visualize your desire, check your posture. Is it hunched? Are you clenching your stomach? Is your breath quick and shallow? That's your feedback loop. That's the signal your body is still carrying the past. So shift it, gently. Relax your breath as if the desire were already fulfilled. Let your hands rest. Speak slower. Walk as if you know the thing is already on its way. This is not acting, this is alignment. Dr. Joe Dispenza calls this becoming the body of the future. It means letting your biology match the identity of the person who already has the thing you're asking for. Your body becomes the transmitter, the tuning fork, the container. And here's the beautiful paradox. Once the body truly believes, you stop chasing proof. You stop needing reassurance. You move through the world differently. Quieter, steadier, more potent. People feel something in you, though you say less. Opportunities appear, not because you force them, but because your presence has shifted. You have become the thing you used to reach for. So ask yourself, what is my body still bracing against? Are your shoulders still holding the weight of a story you no longer believe? Is your breath still tight with the memory of scarcity? Is your nervous system still waiting for disappointment like it always arrives on time? This is not judgment, it's observation. And observation is liberation. Because when you notice, you gain the power to redirect, to pause, to rewire. Every time you say yes with your mouth, make sure your body isn't saying no in silence. And don't force it. The body does not respond to violence. It responds to consistency, to repetition, to safety. You don't reprogram overnight. You rehearse. Every breath, every time you walk through a door, every moment you exhale into trust. Because when the body begins to carry the new belief, manifestation is no longer something you chase. It becomes the natural outflow of who you are. Faith doesn't live in ideas. It lives in posture, in gesture, in stillness, in ease. And that ease can be cultivated, not in a rush, but in small, repeated acts of becoming. So walk like someone who believes. Speak with the pause of someone who already has. Move like the answer is already echoing through your veins. When the body gets it, the universe responds. Because the field does not answer your pleas. It mirrors your tone. And if you want to shift what the field is reflecting back to you, then first, you must become a steady mirror of your own becoming. Next, we explore what the field actually responds to, and why certainty is the most powerful signal you'll ever send. The field doesn't respond to noise. It doesn't flinch at desperation. It doesn't negotiate with begging. The field, this quantum mirror of infinite potential, only responds to certainty. That's the part most people miss. They think the universe answers emotion, but emotion without coherence is chaos. You can cry, plead, chant, fast, visualize. But if your inner signal is saturated with doubt, the field reflects doubt. Not as punishment, but as precision. Neville Goddard never taught begging. He taught becoming. He taught that to receive something, you don't chase it, you assume it. You wear it, you walk with it. You become the tone of it. Faith is not screaming at the mountain. It is standing beside it with such inner knowing that the mountain begins to shift. Not because you made noise, but because your frequency changed the laws beneath it. This is why so many feel stuck. They're doing all the right things, saying the right affirmations, writing the vision, visualizing daily. But if underneath all of that, there's still a silent panic, still an anxious waiting for proof, then the frequency is not one of answered prayer. It's one of absence. And the field mirrors absence with more absence. Not because it is cruel, but because it is accurate. Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz, a pioneer in neuroplasticity, made this simple. What you focus on repeatedly becomes your emotional and neural structure. What you feed grows. What you rehearse becomes the default. So when you rehearse the language of waiting, I hope, I wish, maybe someday, you are rehearsing lack. You are embedding absence into your nervous system, and the field, ever faithful, reflects that song. But when you rehearse certainty, not as performance, but as felt resonance, you shift. Your biology stabilizes. Your thoughts stop scrambling. Your breath becomes rhythm, and that rhythm becomes signal. Certainty is not loud, it's anchored. It's not about being positive all the time. It's about being clear. You don't need to convince yourself with intensity. You need to familiarize yourself with completion, with wholeness, with the energy of already done. So how do you shift from begging to certainty? You don't force it. You acclimate to it. You bring your nervous system home to the place where the prayer is already fulfilled. Breathe like someone who trusts. Walk like someone who has already arrived. Speak like someone who knows, not someone still performing belief. Certainty sounds like silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of assurance. It says, I don't need to ask again. I've already received. It moves through the world without checking the mirror every 5 seconds to see if the reflection has changed. It knows the mirror must change because the signal has changed. And here's the irony. The moment you no longer need the thing to prove your belief, it comes. Because the neediness dissolves the signal. It scrambles the message. Obsession is not faith. It's fear dressed in spiritual clothing. The people who manifest with ease are not the ones trying the hardest. They are the ones most at home in the energy of the outcome. They walk through life like the future is already behind them. Because in their state, it is. The field does not measure time, it measures tone. So you must rehearse the tone of certainty, not just in affirmations, but in how you stand, how you respond to delay, how you breathe when things don't move. This is the deepest practice, to remain loyal to the fulfilled state in the face of contradiction. Not by willpower, but by familiarity, by choosing it again and again and again, until one day the state chooses you, until certainty becomes effortless. Then, you no longer walk into rooms wondering if you're aligned. You are alignment, and life arranges itself around that anchor. You don't manifest by manipulating, you manifest by matching. And the field responds with exquisite clarity to the vibration of I already am. This is how mountains move, not by being shouted at, but by being tuned to. So if you're still knocking on the door of your desire, maybe it's time to realize you've been standing inside the house the whole time. From here, the question isn't, what do I need to do? The real question is, can I stay steady when nothing seems to change? That's where we go next. Faith is easy when doors swing open, when the numbers rise, when the symptoms vanish, when everything seems to align as if heaven itself is leaving you a breadcrumb trail. But what about the quiet? What about the stillness? What about the stretch of time where nothing changes? At least not on the surface? That's where faith gets tested. Not in the moments of arrival, but in the middle, the in-between, the space after the vision but before the manifestation, the waiting room between the prayer and the evidence. This is where most people abandon their transformation. Not because it wasn't working, but because it wasn't working fast enough. Because silence felt like rejection. Because stillness felt like punishment. But faith doesn't panic in silence. Faith breathes there. Neville Goddard called it living in the end. And that end has to live inside you before the world mirrors it. It's not about believing once with fire and emotion. It's about holding the frequency when your senses contradict you, when your environment argues back, when nothing reassures you. The real work of faith is in remaining. Dr. Rick Hanson, a psychologist deeply versed in brain wiring, explains this well. The brain is like Velcro for the negative and Teflon for the positive. It naturally sticks to what's not working, to what's missing, to what could go wrong. So unless you deliberately sustain the state of faith, your biology will default back to doubt. It will collapse the signal. That's why the middle matters. It's not a gap to endure. It's a forge. It's a recalibration. It's a sacred tension where the signal of your desire strengthens or fades. And here's the deeper truth. It's not the universe being slow. It's your nervous system being refined. Your subconscious is learning how to trust without proof. Your emotional body is learning how to hold stability when instability presses in. The middle is not delay, it's design. Think of it like tuning into a radio station. You don't turn the dial once and walk away. You hold the signal, even through static, even through interference, because the broadcast exists. You just haven't heard it clearly yet. The only thing that breaks the connection is your own collapse into doubt. So what do you do in the middle? You practice, not with force, but with devotion. Speak your I am statements, even when they feel distant. Remember your vision, not with desperation, but with depth. Celebrate internal shifts, even if nothing external has moved. Train yourself to hold rightness, even when the world looks wrong. And when doubt comes, and it will, don't wrestle with it. Witness it. Let it pass like a cloud, then return. Neville said, "Persist in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. For in that persistence, reality is compelled to conform." This is not positive thinking. This is energetic dominion. Dr. Hansen echoes the same. What you repeat becomes your default. What you feed becomes your frequency. So feed the fulfilled version, not as fantasy, but as foundation. This is the womb space, the incubation, the gestation of something invisible becoming inevitable. And if you're in it right now, this silence, this waiting, this long exhale before the breakthrough, know this: you're not failing. You're forming. You're not being punished. You're being polished. Your nervous system is learning how to stand without crutches, how to breathe without conditions, how to hold the frequency long enough for reality to reorganize. Because it is reorganizing. The mirror is aligning. The field is listening. But most importantly, you are becoming. Becoming the kind of person who can hold what you've asked for without dropping it the moment it arrives. This is not about earning. It's about embodying. The middle is not meaningless. It is the space where faith gets roots, where desire becomes stable, where you shift from I hope to I am. And once that inner foundation is stable, the outer world must bend. So stay tuned, not because it's easy, but because it's true. And in the next breath, we'll explore how to deal with the very thing that threatens the middle the most, the loop of doubt. Doubt doesn't knock politely. It loops. It circles back like a familiar ghost, dressed in thoughts that sound logical, even responsible. What if I imagined too much? Maybe I need a backup plan. What if it was never meant for me? This voice doesn't scream, it whispers, but its impact is seismic if you don't catch it. Doubt is not the voice of caution. It's the echo of conditioning. It lives in old neural pathways, built from past disappointments and rehearsed beliefs. Left unexamined, it builds a subtle architecture in your mind. And soon, you're no longer creating from faith. You're building from the fear of being let down again. Neville Goddard said it plainly. To be conscious of being poor while praying for riches is to be rewarded with poverty. You can't carry contradiction and expect alignment. You can't declare one reality with your lips and radiate another with your body and breath. This is not about guilt. It's about awareness. Because when you bring awareness to the loop, you take its power. Dr. Caroline Leaf, cognitive neuroscientist, confirmed this biologically. Repeated thoughts, especially fear-based ones, change brain structure. They create real, physical patterns in the mind. Your emotional body responds accordingly. Your field echoes it back. So how do you break the loop? Step 1. Witness the pattern. Not with shame, not with resistance, just observation. When doubt arises, pause. Say inwardly, "This is the old loop." That recognition alone opens space. Space to choose again. Step 2. Replace the language. Don't affirm forcefully. Affirm firmly, grounded, with presence. I am safe to trust again. This fear is passing, not permanent. My faith grows stronger with each breath. When spoken with awareness, these words land differently. Step 3. Rehearse the emotion. Words without feeling are weak. Emotion gives them weight. Feel what peace would feel like, what confidence would do to your breath, what clarity would do to your posture. Let the body memorize what safety feels like. Step 4. Shorten the gap. Every time the loop returns, catch it sooner. Not perfectly, but a second sooner, half a breath sooner. That small interruption rewires your response. The delay between doubt and return becomes your training ground, because the loop itself isn't a curse. It's feedback. It's a signal saying, "Can we trust the new path?" Your job isn't to erase the question. It's to train the nervous system to hold the new answer. And yes, doubt will return. That's part of being human. But doubt isn't the end of faith. It's the invitation to deepen it. Most people think they have to eliminate all fear to manifest. But faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's the muscle of returning. Every time you pause instead of spiraling, you're breaking the old story. Every time you speak with grounded conviction instead of panic, you're writing a new code. Every time you breathe into trust instead of tension, you're changing your frequency. The field doesn't demand perfection. It responds to consistency, to repetition, to alignment that holds even when the sky is gray. Neville again. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it hardens into fact. That assumption cannot survive if every pause is filled with panic. You must learn how to wait in wholeness. Faith doesn't mean you never hear the old voice again. It means you don't follow it anymore. So next time the loop whispers, don't collapse, don't argue, don't overthink. Simply nod and return. Return to the breath. Return to the frequency. Return to the self that already knows, because when you do that enough times, you stop being shaken. You stop asking for signs. You become the sign. People will feel the shift. They won't know what changed, but they'll feel it in your presence, in your stillness, in your soft certainty. This is how doubt loses power, not through force, but through return, again and again, until the new belief becomes the new home. And once you're steady there, we can finally reveal what faith truly is, not just an idea, but a technology. Faith is not just a spiritual concept passed down through scriptures and sermons. It is a technology, a precise operational system designed to interface with the invisible architecture of reality. Just as your phone connects you to the internet, your faith connects you to the field of infinite possibilities. But here's the key. Like any technology, it only works when properly tuned. When Jesus said, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move,' and it will move." He wasn't using poetry. He was describing a law, a physics of the unseen. The seed is small, yes, but its code is complete. Inside it lives the pattern for a tree. Likewise, true faith, even if it feels small, is encoded with a full blueprint of transformation. But the universe doesn't respond to the wish. It responds to the frequency behind the wish. It doesn't reflect your surface-level words. It mirrors the vibration of your dominant belief, your underlying emotional tone, the truth you carry in your bones, even if your lips say otherwise. You may ask for abundance, but if you vibrate with scarcity, the field mirrors scarcity. Not because it is cruel, but because it is exact. This is why people lose trust in faith. They think the technology is broken. They visualize, pray, affirm, and nothing happens. But faith doesn't fail. What fails is alignment. Dr. Andrew Newberg, a neuroscientist, showed that belief shifts measurable regions of the brain. It changes your neural chemistry. It creates coherence in the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, the hippocampus. That coherence is the biological echo of spiritual certainty. And once it's felt, truly felt, it begins to tune the field. You're not waiting on God. You're not waiting on the universe. You're waiting on coherence. This is why tuning is everything. If your signal is scattered, part of you believing, part of you doubting, your message to the field is scrambled. The result? Static, delay, confusion. Not because the field is rejecting you, but because it can't lock onto your frequency. Faith, then, is the work of refinement, of aligning what you say you want with what you actually believe and what your body broadcasts. You must become a clean transmission, a steady beacon. Dr. Joseph Murphy once said, "Your subconscious accepts what your conscious mind believes and accepts as true. Not what it wishes, what it accepts." So faith is not loud, it is clear. It's not fantasy, it's function. Like a radio dial, your job is to tune until you hit clarity, until the static falls away, until you feel the inner click of yes, the state of being where the outcome is no longer questioned, but assumed. And here's the elegant beauty of this technology. It doesn't require perfection, just precision. You can be soft and clear, gentle and certain. You don't need to hype yourself. You don't need to scream it louder. You need to embody it better. But remember this, the technology always works. Always. The only variable is the input signal. That's you. When your prayer goes unanswered, don't doubt the field. Diagnose the frequency. Ask, what belief am I leaking? What fear is embedded inside my asking? What part of me doesn't actually expect this to work? Then retune, refine, return to center. And yes, sometimes the outcome will look different than expected. Because the field doesn't deliver your fantasy. It delivers your greatest alignment, your highest potential. What truly serves your evolution. You may pray for a job and receive a revelation. You may ask for a person and receive a path. Faith doesn't always work how you want, but it always works for who you're becoming. Like a GPS, it may reroute. Not to deny you, but to protect you from roads your conscious mind can't yet see. So trust it. Trust the unseen intelligence woven into the fabric of faith itself. It's not blind optimism, it's informed confidence. Because once you understand faith as a spiritual technology, you stop doubting the delay. You stop questioning the detour. You start fine-tuning your transmission, knowing that life is always responding, not to what you say, but to what you radiate. And once you master this, you're ready for the next level. To live not as the seeker, but as the one who has already received. That's where we're going next. There comes a moment in your practice of faith when you stop reaching forward and start living from the answer. You no longer pray toward something. You embody it. You don't stand in lack, visualizing a distant future. You stand in fullness, transmitting from the frequency of fulfillment. Neville Goddard called this living in the end, and it changes everything. Because when you live from the end, you don't just think differently, you are different. You move, speak, breathe, and respond as someone who already has. Christian scripture phrases it simply, we walk by faith, not by sight. But that walk is not metaphor. It is movement, breath, posture, every moment infused with the knowing that what you've asked for is already true, regardless of what your eyes see. To live from the answer is to reverse the relationship with your desire. No longer does the desire sit on the horizon, whispering someday. It becomes the ground you walk on. It becomes your atmosphere. Take Abraham, for example. Promised descendants as numerous as the stars. Though he and his wife were far beyond childbearing age, there were no visible signs of that promise. No son, no pregnancy, just silence. Yet he walked as though it had already happened. That faith was counted as righteousness, not because of action, but because of embodiment. This is the invitation, to become the person whose prayer has already been fulfilled. Not just in words, but in how you rise from your bed, in how you greet the morning, in how you respond to delays and disappointments. If you are praying for healing, live as someone who is whole. If you are calling in abundance, walk with the calm steadiness of one who knows resources are always flowing. If you are asking for love, become the expression of that love. First with yourself. This is not denial of current circumstances. It is alignment with a deeper truth. Dr. Candace Pert, renowned neuroscientist, discovered that emotions are not just felt, they are biochemical messengers. They alter your cells. They shape your body. Your nervous system becomes the landscape of your dominant emotional state. So if your daily state is gratitude, wholeness, and peace, your physiology begins to reflect that. The chemistry shifts, the signals change, and the field once again mirrors the tone, not the wish. This is the secret that turns passive faith into active transformation. It's not enough to think positively. You must inhabit the prayer. You must synchronize your inner world with the outer result before the result comes. And when it comes, it is no longer a surprise. It is confirmation of what has already been true within you. So how do you practically live from the answer? You start with the question, who would I be if this were already done? What choices would I make? What food would I eat? How would I walk into this room? What energy would I bring to this conversation? This is not fantasy, it's instruction. You are not pretending. You are pre-living. You are rehearsing the identity of the fulfilled. And with enough rehearsal, it becomes reality. Your nervous system relaxes. Your reactions change. Your voice slows down. You stop needing external validation because your internal alignment is strong enough to hold the field. This is why gratitude is so powerful. When you feel gratitude for something before it exists in your timeline, you collapse the timeline. You become a vibrational match for it. The field hears, "This already is," and responds accordingly. But here's the crucial part. This embodiment must be congruent. If you profess abundance but still fear every bill, the signal is scrambled. If you affirm love but reject yourself in silence, the mirror fogs. Living from the answer requires harmony. Your thoughts, your words, your emotions, your body, they must all carry the same tone. When they do, the field has no choice but to deliver the external form, because it already exists, not in potential, but in dimension. And when your internal signal aligns, you don't pull it from nothing. You tune in to what is already there. This is the mystery revealed. The answer does not come to you. It comes through you. And once you live this way long enough, you stop seeking confirmation. You become it. Your life becomes a living signal. Every breath a prayer. Every step a declaration. This is not theory. This is technology. This is the law of resonance in action. So what's next? Now that you've learned how to live from the answer, you must train yourself to sustain the signal, regardless of circumstances. Because when the identity stabilizes, the transmission strengthens. And that's where we go now. Living from the answer is only the beginning. To truly transform your life, you must go further. You must sustain the frequency. Not just for moments, not just when it's easy, but until it becomes your default state. This is where the internal structure of your identity gets rewritten, cell by cell, breath by breath. You've rehearsed the feeling of your fulfilled desire. Now, you must make that rehearsal your reality. You must train your system to hold the energy of completion until it becomes who you are, not just what you want. This is not about control. It's about coherence. Coherence between your body, mind, and emotional field. When your nervous system stops flinching at the good, when your breath no longer braces, when your reactions match peace instead of panic, you have entered the state where manifestation is no longer effort, but echo. This is where identity becomes destiny. Think of it this way. The universe is listening to your stability, not your excitement. Anyone can feel abundant for a few minutes after meditation. Anyone can visualize with power for 10 seconds. But the life you're living now reflects the tone you hold most often. Not the intensity of your desire, but the consistency of your state. This is the secret of sustained transformation. Your frequency must become familiar to you. Not thrilling, not rare, normal. So how do you do that? You rehearse completion like a language, daily, repeatedly, gently. Start by asking yourself, what does finished feel like? Not what it looks like, not what it requires, but how it lands in your breath, in your shoulders, in the way you sit in a room without needing to prove anything. That's the emotional tone you want to memorize. Then you repeat it every morning before your phone, every evening before your mind replays the chaos. You pause and return to the state. Not to get something, but to become someone. You begin to notice the micro reactions, the way you respond to delays, the tone in your voice when someone questions your path, the shift in your body when a bill arrives or a text doesn't. Those are your real prayer moments. And each time you ask, am I broadcasting lack or completion? And you don't judge, you just retune. Because the field doesn't punish deviation, it reflects pattern. And every time you shift back into alignment, you strengthen the signal. You reinforce the neural path. You deepen the groove in your identity. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches that once the body enters coherence, heart rate, breath, brain waves all aligned, you broadcast a magnetic signal that draws in matching possibilities. Not because you asked louder, but because your frequency was stable enough to receive. This is when results accelerate, not because the field speeds up, but because your resistance slows down, your interference drops, your signal sharpens, and suddenly, what felt like delay becomes alignment. What felt far away begins to arrive, not to surprise you, but to join you. Because you're already living inside the answer. And here's the deeper truth. Once your system acclimates to this new state, the old one feels foreign. Worry feels like static. Overthinking feels heavy. Doubt feels out of tune. You stop chasing outcomes. You start calibrating states. Because now, you understand. The real power isn't in getting what you want. It's in becoming someone who no longer needs to doubt it. This is when people start responding to you differently. Not because you changed your words, but because you carry something else. A signal, a field, a subtle certainty that shifts rooms without effort. You become the evidence. You become the proof others were waiting for. And in this state, you stop obsessing over what's coming. You live in what already is. You become magnetized to moments that match your new rhythm, not because of luck, but because of law. This is resonance. This is the echo chamber of aligned being. And now, with the signal stable, we step into the next dimension of faith, not just holding the signal, but becoming the signal itself. Because once you are the signal, there is no need to search. There is a turning point on the path of faith where you no longer just hold the signal, you become it. You don't remind yourself who you are. You are it. You don't walk as someone trying to manifest. You walk as the manifestation itself. Not because something happened to you, but because something happened within you. This is the state of being where every cell, every breath, every look in your eyes echoes the reality you've chosen. Not in concept, in conduct. You're no longer reaching for the outcome. You're radiating the outcome. And people around you begin to feel it, even if they can't name it. This is what happens when the frequency stabilizes, when it becomes effortless. You're no longer acting. You're no longer practicing. You're embodying naturally. You become the field. You become the prayer walking. You become the answer to a question someone else hasn't yet asked. This is the deepest level of transformation, where identity is no longer something you're upgrading. It's something you've merged with. Your voice changes. It slows down. Not because you're hesitant, but because your words now carry weight. You speak less, but when you do, it lands. People listen, not because you're persuasive, but because your state is undeniable. You walk into a room and shift it, not by effort, but by essence. You're not selling certainty. You're exuding it. This is the power of becoming the signal. It's not about having more. It's about needing less. It's about walking as someone who no longer asks, "Is it coming?" Because the answer has already arrived, inside. This is the paradox of real power. You no longer pursue. You reside. You live in the house of your answer. And from there, all things begin to reflect you. This isn't ego. It's embodiment. You're not projecting superiority. You're radiating resonance. You're not fighting for attention. You're anchoring presence. When you become the signal, the world no longer triggers you the same way. What used to scare you now bores you. What used to tempt you now feels irrelevant. What used to rattle your peace now passes through you like wind through leaves, because you've become something solid, quietly powerful, deeply magnetic. And here's the gift. This energy is sustainable. You're no longer burning fuel to stay positive. You're resting in being. You're synced, tuned, alive with an inner rhythm that doesn't waver when circumstances do. The field now responds before you speak, because your signal speaks louder than your voice. You begin to notice synchronicities happening with less delay. You attract people, opportunities, outcomes, not because you worked harder, but because you matched more clearly. And as your life begins to shift externally, you realize this was never about the result. It was about becoming someone who no longer doubts the truth, someone who no longer negotiates with fear, someone who no longer requires outer validation to feel inner authority. Faith has become flesh. Invisible has become inevitable. You are now the mirror the universe uses to reflect what's possible. But there's still one layer deeper. Beyond even becoming the signal lies the final invitation. To walk through life as if your life itself is the prayer. As if every step, every breath, every ordinary moment carries the sacred tone of answered. Not just to manifest, but to live in devotion to the energy of already. To become the embodiment of reverence. That's where we end. When you've rehearsed the frequency long enough, when you've sustained it through silence and doubt, when your identity no longer flinches at the possibility of good things, something exquisite begins to happen. Your life itself becomes the prayer. Not the words you say in the morning, not the journaling before sleep, but every breath, every action, every micro-expression. Every moment you walk past a mirror and don't question yourself, you are no longer waiting for divine response. You are the divine response. This is what it means to live as the embodiment of faith. Not as a tool, not as a ritual, not as a method to get what you want, but as your very essence, a walking field of coherence, a steady, rhythmic yes that the universe cannot help but echo. And here's what becomes stunningly clear. You are no longer asking. You are answering. The gap between prayer and manifestation collapses, not because reality sped up, but because you stopped standing outside the thing you wanted. You dissolved the barrier of doubt. You dropped the performance of belief. And what remained was truth. The truth that you were always the bridge. You were always the tuning fork. You were always the evidence you sought. When your frequency reaches this level, outcomes no longer define you. Delay no longer disturbs you. The pace of life no longer panics you, because you've stepped out of time, out of lack, out of needing, and into embodied knowing. And what's even more miraculous is that people begin to mirror your state. Without you saying a word, they soften in your presence. They question their own limitations. They begin to believe again, not in you, but in themselves, because they feel what it looks like to carry the answer without grasping. You become a transmission. You become an atmosphere. You become a field that others step into and remember who they are. This is when you stop hoping and start revealing. This is when faith is no longer a tool. It is your inheritance. And with that inheritance comes clarity, direction, abundance, peace. Not because you earned it, but because you matched it. Every act becomes sacred. Washing dishes becomes worship. Walking your dog becomes alignment. Answering an email becomes declaration. There is no split between the spiritual and the ordinary, because the ordinary becomes infused with the signal of fulfillment. You no longer check to see if the world is listening. You trust that it is, because you are listening, and because the field is you. This is not about perfection, it's about resonance. It's about the deep, grounded, unshakable knowing that says, I don't need more signs. I am the sign. I don't need more proof. I am the proof. I don't need to be chosen. I choose. You become someone who doesn't perform gratitude. You live it. Someone who doesn't visualize abundance. You generate it. Someone who doesn't hope for love. You embody it. This is the final shift, where nothing changes and everything does, where the mountains no longer need to move, because they were never the point. You were, and now you carry it, not like a secret, but like a presence. The prayer is no longer something you say. The prayer is something you are. And so we end, not with a command, not with a final affirmation, but with a quiet, certain truth. When faith becomes your nature, reality has no choice but to honor it, because you've become the vibration that reshapes the world. What if your breath was the temple? What if your schedule was the altar? What if your entire existence, messy, real, unfinished, was the holiest act of all? You've walked this path now, from doubt to discipline, from fragments to fullness, from trying to trusting. And maybe in doing so, you've realized that the most sacred transformation isn't about getting more. It's about becoming more, or rather, becoming more fully yourself. Because the most potent faith isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's consistent. It's that subtle yes in the face of the unknown. It's the whisper that keeps walking even when there's no applause. It's the breath you choose to deepen when anxiety knocks. It's the smile you offer your reflection. Not because you need it, but because you've become it. You've tuned yourself. You've aligned your cells with your soul. You've synchronized your body with your belief. And now, you get to live. Not from scarcity, not from striving, but from certainty. You'll still have human moments, days of doubt, flashes of fear, but you'll return faster. You'll breathe deeper. You'll know how to anchor, because you are the anchor. This is what spiritual maturity looks like. Not louder declarations, but softer embodiment. Not more tools, but deeper trust. Not a perfect life, but a present one. And the world needs more of that. More humans who walk in quiet power. More people whose presence heals without needing to explain why. More lives that are prayers, not because they speak, but because they resonate. So here you are, a living field, a moving cathedral, a quiet, steady answer in a world of noise. And as you walk forward, may this truth walk with you. You don't have to chase miracles. You are the space where miracles land. You don't have to wait to be whole. You are already radiating the frequency of wholeness. You don't have to be chosen. You are already carrying the energy of fulfillment. And every step you take from here is not a reaching. It's a return. To yourself. To your center. To the truth that was always humming underneath it all. So let life mirror you now. Let it rise to meet your tone. Let it echo back what you finally remembered. You've become the prayer, and nothing can ever be the same again.